Okay, so here you have the regular plan, like the one that you plan like for the next year. It's a more general plan. It has its own goals. Then you decide how to get those goals. But you have also what I call emergent plan, the plans that you need to plan during this time of period. For example, what will happen, like we saw with COVID, is that reality doesn't listen to your plans. It's not like you planned something and it's executed 100% the way you planned it. So you have those usually mini adjustments you need to make, so mini plans you need to make sure that you're on track. And sometimes in rare occasions, it can be a huge change, like for COVID. Or let's say you planned 2022 and suddenly you got a big round of funding that you didn't expect. You didn't know when it will come, and then suddenly it becomes reality. So your plans change because you suddenly have more money. Or if you suddenly lose a big client that you didn't expect to lose, because in an Excel sheet, all the numbers are correct, but the reality doesn't listen to Excel sheets. In startups, everything changes very fast. So you basically need a 1-year plan with a very concrete goals you need to achieve. Most of the startups, what they want to achieve is hypergrowth. And so everything is dedicated to this. I believe in a more traditional way of planning. So you basically set your goal for the year ahead, and then you divide this goal into quarters. Each quarter you need to get 1/4 of the goal, but it accumulates. So what happens if you plan it right and if you execute it right, and if everything goes right, of course, is that on quarter 2 or 3 you will be better than you anticipated. If everything goes based on the plan, you can beat your own goals. Campaigners' goal, for example, is to beat the goal they were given. So if each quarter you beat the goal you were given, eventually you will beat the major goal, the one big goal you set yourself. Great question. First of all, me personally, I have a interesting agenda about it. I think sales needs to be under marketing. I don't think it should be a different department, because a website for an e-commerce shop, the salesperson is their website. And usually the marketing is responsible for the website, to optimize the website, for the messaging on the website, conversion rate optimization, everything. It's the marketing who's responsible for that. And it's a sales tool. So why not to be responsible for the physical sales tools, people? This way you can make sure that your messaging is aligned. Everyone is saying the same thing. Everyone is selling the same thing. You then have miscommunication. What happens though in a lot of organizations is because sales can show income, they become the strong force in the company. Yeah. They become the leading force of the company, and the marketing becomes the supporting for sales. What happens is that marketing becomes a supporting group for the sales team. And in this situation, you don't have growth for the long run. You have short-term growth. It's almost looking at Google search, which is the sales team, and any other channel that's supposed to support the growth of the brand. But you don't have this. At some point, the sales team will say, well, we don't have enough leads. We don't have qualified leads. Who's to blame? The marketing. They're supposed to support us. They don't do their job. When the marketing, what they say is, guys, that's not how marketing works. That's not how brand works. We don't have a controller that we open for more leads and close for less leads. And a CRO that you mentioned, I think that's actually a unique position that can sit above marketing and sales. And his role is to care about revenue. But he needs to understand, and that's a crucial point, that there needs to be investment in future revenue, not in current revenue. Most of the companies, I think, 95% of the companies invest in the what I call now revenue. Google search, for example, the existing demand. What companies need to do, and they don't understand it and they don't do it, they don't invest in the future revenue. And what happens is that at some point, there will be a plateau. So you have a rise in income, revenue, everything looks good, and suddenly you have a straight line out of nowhere. 1 month you think it's a small decline, then there's another month and another month, and suddenly you have a half a year of straight line of income, and you don't understand why. And you again start to optimize the wrong things. If you have a CRO, you need to make sure that he looks both long-term and short-term, because you need money now, but it needs to be invested for the long term. Because we are a startup, we have different way to look at things, because we need hypergrowth, and we achieve it, by the way. But we also see sometimes point where the income suddenly becomes steady. We understand that we need tools that create future demand, that we'll see the results in 3, 6 months, maybe even a year from now, like a TV campaign, for example. The most important KPI any company needs to have is revenue and profit. Profit is for more established companies. Revenue is a shared KPI, so everyone knows what is the amount of money we want to achieve. We don't have KPIs of number of MQLs, number of whatever. And for now, I'm happy that we don't have it. We might have it in the future, because I think one of the major problems with this is there will come a point where this KPI will become a goal of itself. So instead of understanding that MQL is a KPI, it's something that helps you to measure your progress. So it's like a speedometer in the car. Your goal is not to be the fastest. You need to get somewhere, and speed is a key performance indicator that indicates how fast you're going to get there. But you can't make your speed the goal of your journey. So we have a much shorter sales cycle, because we sell a solution that, unlike other B2B companies, our price is very low. And then we look at this like e-commerce. Google search is our main short-term revenue driver. And we have activities that their goal is to create demand, which in the future will nurture the Google search. So you have to make this balance between the two, and to know how to measure it, and to make sure you have enough resources for future demand, to create this future demand. We can measure them also. We have different KPIs we look after, but when we look at this holistically, we look at this, we need to create demand. We need to make sure that people that want to buy our solution 3 months from now will come to us. There's a famous research by Les Binet and Peter Field. It's called The Long and Short of It. And in this research, they proved that the golden balance between long-term and short-term is 60-40 for the long-term. So basically, if you have $100, $60 need to go for investing in the long-term, and 40% needs to go for the short-term. Now, it's not a silver bullet. It's not the same exact deviation between all companies. It depends on the stage of the company, it depends on the category, it depends on several different things. But you need to make sure you have this division between the short and the long term. And you also need to understand, of course, what is the short term and what is the long term. Because in our case, for example, Google search is a short term. In other companies, it might be LinkedIn, it might be Facebook. So you need to understand, first of all, what you describe as a short term, and what is the long term, and how you invest there, and how you measure it also, and for how long also. Because in a lot of people's mind, long term is 3 months, when in reality, if you don't do something, the same thing for at least 6 months, it won't have impact. We use spreadsheets, but that's one of the reasons we got Infinigrow, because we want to move to a different kind of planning. 2 years ago, we planned for an entire year ahead, but then the Corona started.
Oh, yeah.
And then everything, we actually, until today, we have a spreadsheet that's called Corona marketing budget, and it's still active, because we're still in a place where we are not exactly sure what's going to happen. But again, that's why we took Infinigrow, because we do want to start planning more in a more smarter way, I would say, and understand a little bit the forecast of what might happen if we change something in the budget. Yeah, so it's a great question. Our main revenue channel is Google search. It's a very straightforward tool. You put money, you almost immediately see results. It's the only one of a kind tool. No other advertising platform works this way.
Yeah.
So when we see that the cost per acquisition is rising, first of all, we make sure that it's actually a trend and not a phase. That's also something that a lot of people do. They see something change, and instead of waiting to see if it's a trend or a phase, they immediately start changing things.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes it's just I would say, I don't know, a bad week, or I don't know, a good weather, everyone are out, and you don't have a business. Everyone is out, and you don't have business. And so, just an example, on Thursday we saw a plump in revenue, and we tried to understand what happened, and we realized it was Veterans Day, and it's a holiday in the US. No matter what would we have done, nothing would have changed. So you first of all wait to see if it's a trend. If it's a trend, you start to analyze what exactly causes this trend. Again, a lot of the times it's out of your control. For example, a new competitor decided to put more emphasis on his Google search. It rises all the costs. I don't know, someone new entered the auction, someone big entered the auction. For example, we suddenly saw one of our terms that we run on is web accessibility, and we suddenly see Elementor started to promote themselves on web accessibility. And it's not a fair game because they don't sell a solution for web accessibility while we do, and they make our cost per acquisition higher just because they entered the same key term. So you analyze, you look at the data, you try to understand if it's something you can control or not, and then you need to make decisions.